All right. For the second time, you all, we're back now. If I just hit the little people person down there, Brother Khalil, will that turn it around to me, brother? Let's see.
No. You want to hit it should be like this little down arrow at the top of your screen to the right.
Yeah, I just hit that, okay. And it said stop broadcast, but I guess it didn't really stop it, or did it?
Yeah, it did. Now we are being broadcast because I could hear it.
Oh, can you?
I could hear when we went live.
Okay, swipe down.
Hold on 1 second.
Okay. I believe that we are live again. Hopefully
You're not live just yet.
Oh, okay then. It's got a sign up here that says stop broadcast, suggesting that we are broadcasting now.
Right, that's what.
Okay, you're live now. Yeah, you're up. I can see you now on my phone. Let me remove this on my screen. Okay, yeah, I see you too. I'm just trying to get it on my computer, so I need to remove this. Oops.
What's the lighting like, bro? Are we all right here? I mean, just from what I'm seeing now, it seems like we're fine, but I just want to be sure.
Yeah, whatever you see.
Okay.
Whatever you see, I see. Yeah, so you good.
Well, I think it's more than good enough for us to be able to kick our broadcast off.
Yeah, hold on 1 second.
Okay. For those of you all who are listening, we're preparing for our brother to brother. We're going to kind of do a simulcast where we're going to do Periscope as well as our brother to brother show. Our whole goal and objective is to be able to build brotherhood, build a foundation to where we can build each other as brothers. And we said brother to brother. So you got to recognize that you are a brother first. And, you know, brothers comes in all kind of terminology. Many times the colloquial term when we say brother, you know, we're talking about brothers in reference to one black man to another black man. We're speaking about it in reference to a relationship, and how we come to that conclusion from a cultural standpoint is called axiology, which is the study of values. And the highest value of black people generally is the relationship and the stability of the relationship. It doesn't mean that we don't have any other values, but that's a part of the priority of what makes us ourselves. Now, granted, you can have your blood brother, or when you're in church, you can say, hey, that's my brother, Brother Jim. You were saying that we're brothers in spirit. We're brothers in Christ, or we may be brothers in Islam. But we're talking about brothers from the heart, brothers from the origin. And we believe that there's some things that we got to do to build on that brand that we call brotherhood. A lot of times when you're in the South and you're being raised, if you're very close to someone and they're your cousins, but y'all live close together, y'all communicate a great deal, many times that person is not called your cousin, that person is called your brother. It's like a relationship. And even when you look at Crip blood folk and people nation, when somebody say, what's up, cousin is a relationship. Somebody say, what's up, blood? You talking about blood, that's talking about blood brother, the bloodline. All of it is about a brotherhood, and we miss that. Even when you start talking about people who go into the Marine Corps, going to the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, it's all about bonding and a brotherhood. People are socialized in America, but in the world as a group. When children go to school and they get ready to be mobilized and move, how do they move them as a unit? They move them as a group. They're in a classroom. They stand in line. I'm saying all that to set a premise for our show today as we talk about brothers to brothers. How we build that pathway to being better brothers to each other. So with that being the case, I'm sure we're about ready to get jumped off. Brother Khalil, do we need our theme music?
All right, quiet on the set.
Q&A session started. This conference is being recorded.
Original Street Warriors. Same and consistent. Hotel Griot Nation Edition, man. I'm Rashidi, a.k.a. Papa Rob. We often say we're the conscious corner where the conscious community hangs out, but guess what? We are brothers to brother, and that's what we're talking about on Brother to Brother today. We're talking about our brotherhood. How do we build brotherhood? Really, what is brotherhood really all about? At the end of the day, have we become talking heads based off history books and what have you? Are we legitimate men who are really marking out our own history and developing as we go? The question today is how to develop manhood. Am I really my brother's keeper? And giving you solutions for us to become better brothers. Because if we become better brothers, we become better teachers. We become better leaders. And then you got to look at us as a husband, as a father, as a friend, as a businessman. There's a unique perspective that comes with being a black man when you call yourself a brother. You stay tuned. Brother to brother. Pathway to becoming a better brother. Mosiah. Shaking the earth, making it work. I decided to grow. You begging for heaven, but tell them that it's hell on these streets.
This man, the real Rashidi of the Griot Nation, asking everyone to connect with us on social media. Like, follow, and subscribe at Griot Nation Radio on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Follow us on Twitter at Griot Radio. And find us on the web at www.griotnationradio.com. Now, that actually
well, there it is, Griot Nation. Black to the building, black to the feeling, and black to the healing. We're talking today about brother to brother. Am I my brother's keeper? And the question we ask is, can we create a pathway for our brothers, or create a pathway for ourselves? Because when we say brotherhood, we're talking about ourselves. I want to say something to you guys. When you look in the mirror, what you see in the mirror is your reflection. You really don't see yourself. You see your reflection. When another brother walks up to me and begins to speak to me, he legitimately sees me. He sees me physically in the flesh. Now, I can look down and see my hands. I can look down and see my arms, but I can never look in my face. And when you look in your eyes, they say your eyes are the seat to the soul. So you can't look that close only if you look in the mirror. So God has created another person like you, which you call your brother, which you all communicate with each other. Now, the problem comes in is if that brother becomes a rival. So now in reality, you are fighting yourself. So when I see somebody say, well, that's black on black crime, we're changing that narrative. No more black on black crime. That's domestic violence. These are people who believe in family, and axiology defines us. Axiology, which is the study of value, says our highest value is that relationship. If that is the case, then our brotherhood is serious. It's very serious. And if you don't have that level of brotherhood, how do we defend each other? How do we protect each other? How do we communicate in a society where we have so much so-called like-minded people many times who don't like you? So now we got to ask ourselves a question. Do we even want brotherhood? I want to start out with this. And I told a story before as a proverb, but more than a story, it's a reality. When we say griot are the storytellers, the history keepers. How I started this sojourn dealing with social intervention and using history and music as, if you would, as a weapon for defending and creating integrity was I started at Dallas Service and Educational Redevelopment. And back in 1989, or maybe it was 87, 88. It's been such a long time ago. But I was working with a friend of mine now who just recently graduated from Harvard Graduate School and named Alfonso Herrera. And while there, we end up, I see somebody say Khalil wants to watch. Oh, okay, I got you. Anyway, I'm just checking out the scene as we look. But nevertheless, there was a young man named Norman. This was my first time out. You understand what I'm saying? If you are a new teacher and you're fresh to a classroom, or you're new to a GED center, or you're new to a facility when you come out, then actually when you first get there, you got to get acclimated. Well, when I first got there, the first thing that I had to recognize was, that everything is not cookie cutter. In college, they teach you that it's go out this prototype of what a student really is, but that wasn't the case. Norman became close to me, just like many of the other students that we had, and we had a beautiful relationship with mostly all the students that were there. At one given time, we had this big test, and on this big test, we really challenged our students. And the first time we took the test, students didn't do so well. Second time I challenged them again, they did a fantastic job. Norman almost making a perfect score. And he kind of set the tone, though he was quiet and laid back. He set the tone by his example. So we did a pizza party at the classroom. And we were having a real good time there. And Kathy, one of the young ladies in the classroom, she came up to me and said she wanted to holler at Norman. I said, well, I'll holler at him. I said, he ain't talking to nobody else. So she wanted to put a good word in for him. But I told her, you got to put your own words in. So she go over to scream at him. She talking to him for a hot minute. But a few minutes later, I see her walking out the door, and she's visibly shaking. She's upset. Something that he's said or done has really upset her. And I didn't pay any attention. These are young adults. Until she came back in, and she was crying. And I asked her, I said, what happened? And long story short, she said that Norman called her a bitch. Well, the first thing I said, he did what? I said, well, that has never been my experience. So the first thing she questioned me was I lying? I was like, no, I'm not saying that you lying, sweetheart. I'm saying that was never my experience with him. Let me go talk with him. So I approached Norman, and he walked away from me, suggesting that perhaps he did say something wrong. He walked out the door. I followed him outside to the hallway, and I asked him, I said, hey, man, let me holler at you for a minute. And out of character, he continued to walk, and I grabbed him by his arm, and the guy that turned around wasn't the Norman that I normally know. He stood at me, we know it as brother to brother. That's standoff. When the next move may be some conflict that's going to become physical. And I said, hey, dog, we ain't going to roll this way. Either we going to have this conversation, or we just going to go hand to hand on this. I'm a young man. You're a young man, too. So I saw the exterior break down a little, enough that I could talk to him. So we go into the classroom, and this boy begins to break down and cry as if someone had just died close to him. And I let him cry, and I let him get it out. And after it was over, he started to push back the tears a little more. He said, can I tell you a story? And he went on to tell me a story about him coming out of New York. But I didn't know much about him other than he came out of New York. He said, man, my mother and father got divorced when I was 12. And he said, I used to do a little boxing. My father and I were close, but in the absence of my father, I was just kind of out there. My mother was a nurse. She worked, the 11 to 7 shift in the morning, from 11 at night to 7 in the morning. So, he was going to school handling his business, but shortly thereafter, he started to slip and obviously got involved in the game. By the time he was 15 or 16 years old, he was known as Nomad. He had good hand skills. He was dropping dudes. So he had established a reputation for himself. So much so that he wasn't really going to school anymore. And his mother never really got the information because she was working. He would always catch the mail. One time in particular, they decided they wanted to go out and do something they call trick banging. That's when you go out and you rape a prostitute. Because after all, they felt like prostitutes don't have any redeeming value. And if we rape them, ain't nothing nobody's going to do about it. So as they're going to go to trick bang this night, he got 9 of his crew members up at the apartment that night. A couple or 3 of them going to wait on him over at the other spot where they're going to go hit. So after they get a high and whatever they put in their system, he said, they go down to this spot and they look at, and they see some, in his words, some hoes coming through. And he kind of out of it, but he recognized the voice of one of them, and he hollered at his boss, that hoe. So they put it on, they stood in the alley, and as she came through, they grabbed her. And they beat her almost unmercifully till she was almost unconscious. And they started to rape her, Norman being the first person to rape her. Now, he's telling me this story. And he said after everybody had raped her and they were getting ready to leave, he said that all of a sudden he felt a little sick. And, he could put his clothes on. So he said his homeboy was kind of dragging her out the way because she was calling his name. He was like, man, you done put this on this hoe so bad, she calling your name. And Norman is putting his clothes up, and he glanced at her, and he wants to take a closer look, and all of a sudden he got sick. So his homeboy went to chamber his weapon and said, I'm going to shoot this hoe. He done made my boy sick. And his homeboy, Norman, looks over and screams, say, don't shoot, no. He was like, what's up, nigga? He said, it's my mother. His mother, who normally works the 11 to 7 shift, had come home that night looking for Norman. Talked to the neighbor. The neighbor said, I saw him with 8 or 9 other boys in the apartment, and they said that they was going to such and such a place. So the mother, looking for her son, doing due diligence, talked to the neighbor and went to where she thought her son was, or where they said they were going to be. And she became victimized by not only her son, but 9 to 10 other people. So with that being the case, I'm saying to you this. It put me in a tailspin. For the first time, for me being a new teacher, a new case manager, that was too big. I didn't know whether to hug that brother or just to beat him in the face. Because where I'm from, your mother is like God. Your first love journey comes through your mother. And every time I looked at him, I got sick just thinking about the possibility that anyone could do that to their mother. And the only thing I could do with him and for him at the time is I said, brother, let's pray. And in doing so, I was able to engage him a little more. Long story short, a year later, Norman ended up committing suicide. He took a 38 and put it to his head, blew his brains out. I didn't see that coming, nor did I see it coming in the story that he told me. And it gave me a whole different perspective on brotherhood, because people were just saying, well, you know, they made such a monster out of this boy, but I believe that he was a victim of his circumstances, and so was his mother. An absent father, a mother who wants to work a good job, a kid who's trying to function in the absence of his dad not being there, who makes the wrong decision, who gets involved in a gang, which goes back to the situation where we got to be mentors, because young folks are led by examples, not by advice. Young black man got a 1 in 21 chance of being killed before he's 25 years old. We are 3,600 times more likely to be killed than any other human being on the face of the planet. We have double-digit unemployment. We die earlier than any other human being that is a male on the planet. 70% of all black males are not in the house with their family, and we're as individual males who have one of the smallest population. We make up the largest prison industrial complex capacity that's there now. That suggests you all we got to do a better job of taking care of ourselves. So today we're not ranting and raving about anything else other than how do we love each other, how do we protect each other, and become better men to our brothers so we can become better fathers, better husbands, better businessmen, better everything that we can be. Because look, it's difficult for you to talk about how you're going to save the world, black man, when you can't save yourself. And a good job ain't enough. And with that being the case, y'all, let's chime in. Let's get started. I think I set that premise. And I got some questions along the way, but let's get this thing jumped out.
Well, you know, that's a very powerful story about Norman. And, you know, it just speaks to the mental side that we have undergone as a community. You know, we're talking about brotherhood. And right now, you know, my mind is racing. I don't know whether I want to engage from a perspective of the things that have been done to us historically that have caused us to devolve, if you will, to the state where we are and to where we are as brothers. The state of our brotherhood is directly impacted by the things that we've undergone as a people. So I guess I should really just ask a question, and that question would be, what role has social engineering played in where we are as black men and how we now define brotherhood?
Well, I think we have to start first by starting with our first narrative, whether you want to start at 1555 or whether you want to start at 1619. We can go back to 1605 to 1607, where brothers fought so hard, the Haitian Maroons and the Jamaican Maroons, that we overturned ships, which spoke to our brotherhood even there, meaning that we were resisting and fighting captivity. We can go back to Shaka Zulu. The Zulus fought 100 years against the British, so it speaks to who we are as men. The Mau Mau's, the whole concept that the Italian used, that they really don't exist, even though they still do exist. That comes from the Mau Mau code. Those are powerful black men. So with that being the case, let's look at our sojourn in America. In 1555, on a slave ship called Jesus, we started heading over here. But was that slavery, brothers? I've often said, if you take me from my homeland against my will, that's not slavery. That's kidnapping. If you castrate me to instill fear and cut my foot off when I run, that's not slavery, that's terrorism. If you take sex away from my granddaughters and my grandmothers against their will, that is not slavery, that is rape. if you strip me of my name, my language, my culture, my religion, my values, and my norms, that is not slavery. That is genocide. So we starting out. These are 5 components, you all, of war. So brothers got to realize what happened to us to begin with. That was a war that was declared upon us that we call slavery. And the first person to actually have harnesses on their backs, you thought it was mules and cows, but we were some of the first people they domesticated before they started domesticating dogs. You understand what I'm saying to you? So with that being the case, if we begin there, we got some terrible circumstantial side effects. You talk about close to 300 years where you have no control of your body. You have really no control of your mind. Even if you have control of your mind, you can't dictate based on what you think how you're going to act. So with that being the case, you all, we're looking at maybe 150 years of actually being free. When I say free, having the right to go to school, having the right to choose things, having the right to do certain things. So with that being the case, we don't want to describe ourselves and say we begin our existence as slave or people of war. But unfortunately, that was the circumstances. But that doesn't define who we are. We've grown to the point to where we become some of everything in this society. So you have to love us. And we've worked hard to be good fathers and to be good stewards of resources that we make to take care of our families. But with that being the case, you all, we find ourselves now in a situation where our manhood many times is defined by popular culture. You know, with the new movement of dealing with issues of dealing with gay and lesbian. Brothers don't know whether and then that terminology is whether you're metrosexual or whether we just too angry, whether we too prone to go to prison, we're lazy. I mean, there's so many negative terminology that defines us based on popular culture. That is not who we are. With what we've gone to, we have been some of the most responsible fathers that you can imagine based on the attack that we've gone to. And I'm saying as we go forward, we have to do things to help each other out. Understanding this, every 7 years a man goes through rites of passage, particularly a black man. So at 7 years old, you start looking for your father. You start trying to identify what was it that created me. Then by the time you're 14, you've socialized enough that now you want to create your own little posse, your own little group of like-minded people, because now you kind of identify with who you think you are. Then 7 years later, you're 21 years old. When they say you can drink, you can do all these other things. So by the time you become 21 years old, now you think you've established an identity as a man, but you really haven't at that point. Because you have deficits, because many times your father is missing and you don't have the proper support. So the next stage is 21, it's 28. Now is the time when you normally should be getting married, but we're normally 7 years off. So normally by 35, we start considering getting married. So we have to look at all these functional things. So as we go forward, the question we got to ask ourselves, what state of mind are we in? This is one question I ask all the brothers who's listening right now. As we look at our brotherhood, you see what I have here is a code of conduct. I used to have to use these in prison systems because brothers' humanity was taken from them. And they didn't know really what a man was. You know, a dude told me, nigga, I ain't no punk. I let a nigga suck my dick, but I ain't no punk. That means prison had conditioned him to think that if another man did fellatio on him, he was still all right. Because nobody had defined to him what really a man was. So with that being the case, we have to establish a code of conduct.
Definitely. I want to remind everyone that this is an interactive call. We have callers on the line. If you want to make a comment, if you have a question, please press *6. That will put you into the call queue, and you'll be recognized, and will allow you to ask your question. Definitely, code of conduct. I have a close friend, and we're always talking about a code of conduct. And if we don't have a code of conduct is something. It's akin to a compass,
Right.
To be able to help us establish direction, stay on the path toward wherever it is that we're going.
Like you got a 42 negative confessions of Tahudis. I mean, so even when you go back through African culture, you see that we've always had codes. Even if you go through your Bible, you call them the 10 Commandments. You know, so no matter where you go, there are things. You know, some people have some negative things to say about a code, but the concept that I got this from was Dr. John Henry Clark. And believe me, that was their master teacher. He was like, if we don't have no codes, we don't have things to establish boundaries. He said, I was listening to you talking about gangs, brother. That was a time when we would have never killed a baby. At our own expense, we would have never hurt a woman. But some of our codes, without having codes, they diminished.
Well, you know, when you talk about codes and establishing boundaries, one of the things that I see that is happening to us as a people, with our youth in particular, is that the state has decided what the codes will be and what the boundaries will be for our children. When we came from backgrounds where, you know, you spare the rod, you spoil the child, period, point blank, and you know, we love, exactly, we love our children, so we're not, you know, no one who is mentally stable is setting out to hurt their child. However, we do realize that we must establish boundaries, and for a 2-year-old or for a 1-year-old who may not understand language, who may not understand not putting his finger in a light socket, or who may not understand that you just can't bolt off the front porch and run right into the middle of the street, then that language, that pain is what draws that boundary for someone who is in that stage of development. And like you said, with the CPS cases, so now we can't establish and draw boundaries for ourselves, but we allow the state and the federal government to draw those boundaries, and those boundaries are not in our best interest.
You the case in point, you all brothers. I mean, how many of you all were growing up and you got whooping? Sometimes, you know, it was over the top, but most of the time it was done out of love. But we got to the point where we started listening to Dr. Spock, and I'm not talking about Dr. Spock from Star Trek, I'm talking about the psychologist, that you don't spank your child, that you give your child time out. But basically what you were doing, you were putting together standards based off what it looks like in an Anglo community. There were different cultural things that we have that our children recognize. You know, in our community, we know tone and intentions is really strong. You can tell by how your mama talked to you. You know, just how sometimes she not talk, she just grit her teeth, and you didn't even know what she was saying, but you know, you better sit up. So, you know, sometimes that body language.
Well, communication is 80% nonverbal.
Right.
So
a lot of times, if you think about what we're saying right now, and you say, well, brother, I know what you're saying, but how many of you brothers out there right now got problems with your son? How many of you brothers out there have no control over your children? And many times that control has to do with the attorney general. It has to do with your inability to get along with that woman. And all that don't have to do with the fact that you're just a bad brother. A lot of this has to do with circumstantial side effects. But at the end of the day, we are the ones who have to be, we always say, regardless of what people do to you, you are still responsible for what you do for you, but you got to be aware that there are some deficits that you face before you go forward.
Some fool just chimed in and said, say the word suka, and it means in Russian that you're a positive person. But I speak Russian, so suka means bitch. So take that.
Well, you all, anyway, I ain't even worried about what the negative was saying, because let me tell y'all something. Anytime we try to do something that's going to be good for us, you're going to get that.
Yes, indeed.
And you got to be prepared for that as brothers. And that's one thing that you can learn for us by example. Look, you can say all you want to say, but don't violate my space. That's all I can say to you. As long as you're putting your little words up there, that's all well and good. But I'm looking for mothers. I'm looking for fathers. I'm looking for brothers who really want to improve their lives. And one of the things we can start out with, brothers, spend a little more time with ourselves. How many of you ever, cut your TV off, cut your phone off, and take 15 minutes? Y'all understand what I'm saying to you? Some time for you, brothers. And a lot of times, I don't care if you're 42, 52, or 62, get a mentor that's older than you. So that means if you're 52 years old, if you think you're going to live to 62, that means somebody else who got 10 more years on you might need to tell you what the landmines are. Make some good suggestions to you. If you're 42, it may be somebody 52 who can tell you what the landmines are. A lot of times we look and we think that we're in good standings when we see ourselves, but in reality, we got to look at ourselves and say, yeah, I can improve upon that. I've had some things that said to me here lately that I may have argued with PG about, and I'm like, man, blank and blank. But sometimes if you go back and sit down and say, let me think about that, the next thing you'll do is you'll reevaluate, because there's a difference between listening and hearing. I can hear a bomb go off, but I don't know what happened. But if I listen, I'm getting clarity. Y'all understand what I'm saying? Listening means that you are listening because you want to be able to improve, as opposed to hearing so you can hurry up for him to finish saying what he's saying so you can say what you want to say.
Yes, sir. One of my favorite sayings, one of my favorite quotes is, as iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another. And there is so much gold. There are so many nuggets in that simple saying. That is what the brotherhood, that is one of the purposes of the brotherhood, that we sharpen each other spiritually, that we sharpen each other mentally, intellectually. from the standpoint of being a warrior, that we challenge each other physically. Right. All of these things are components of brotherhood. And, right now, it is more dire than ever. A lot of people, and detractors, I'm going to say detractors, people who are negative. What I've been observing recently is people wanting to dictate the narrative and include certain language like, oh man, they just talking, man, they just talking, they just talking, they talk. Well, if you look at the word community, and if you look at the word communication, the root word commune is relative to both of those words. That being said, without communication, you have no community. So to these people who like to throw that out there, this is my retort or my response to that. Perhaps you don't want to communicate because you understand that it would bring you to a point of communion. And when you are brought into that circle, you might be asked to pick up a broom. You might be asked to pick up a hammer. You might be asked to get your hands dirty. So, I'm going to, in the words of our illustrious ancestor, Dr. Khaled, our big brother, these days I'm going to strive to be more profound and less profane. In other words, I really wanted to say something right there, but I refrained from doing it. So, big brother, you were talking about the code of conduct.
Yeah, well, let's get into the code. For over 31 years now, I've worked with gang members. When I say gang members, young men who've chosen to be involved in a group where they were seeking security, seeking family, seeking some way to be empowered. And many times they don't know what to expect when they get in there. They're just looking for, guess what, you all, brotherhood. Most kids who join a gang join between 7 and 9 years age, and normally gangs start on a playground. They're not trying to hurt nobody. They're not trying to be dope dealers. But when that being the case, that means something is missing, and they're creating something on their own. So with that being the case, one of the things that we started out with our code of conduct, particularly with brothers, I got to have you honest with me. As a court advocate, when I used to go into court with a kid, I said, hey, man, look, the one thing you got to tell me is the truth. And I can build a case around the truth. I can't build a case around a lie. If I build a case around a lie, as soon as the lie is known, it's going to crumble and fall. And you see all them other brothers sitting in the back of the courtroom right now, you just crushed their possibility now. So the first thing that we had on the code is be open and honest at all times. You understand what I'm saying? Honest all time. Give you a good example. 16-year-old boy in New York I was working with. Had won all kind of DJ competitions, making $5 and $6 grand, winning these competitions. Wasn't even old enough to go into the club, so someone had to go in there with him. But that's how he paid the bills for his mom. Something happens, he getting a little too happy, exposing people to his home. They break in, they steal all of his equipment. He angry, get with a homeboy, and supposedly something comes up missing at a local pawn shop. So he gets arrested for it, and they called me while I was in New York, and I went by to see him, and I was like, Carlos, says, what's going on, man? I know you're a good kid. Tell me that this ain't true. Mr. Rashidi, really ain't true, man. I never did that. My homeboys blank, blank, and blank. I said, hold on, Carlos. Look, I got mad love for you, dude. First code of conduct, homeboy. Honest and open at all times. Don't let me walk in no courtroom, brother. And if you're not telling me the truth, it's Mr. Rashidi. That is not my history. Took his word for it. And as I'm going up there talking to the judge, bringing my letters of support from the preacher, from the school, showing what he's accomplished, the guy at the district attorney's office come up and show him Exhibit A. You know what that is? A picture of him stealing the stuff out of the pawn shop. Now, had he told me the truth, you know what I would have told the judge? That he made a bad decision. He's the breadwinner in the family, but he's a 16-year-old breadwinner, and he's immature. But if given the opportunity, he would never do this again. Give me 6 more months to take him through an intense program, sir, and I'll bring him back, and he'll be a better young man. Guess what? The judge would have probably let him walk out with me. But because he lied, and I supported that lie, we both walked out of that courtroom disappointed. So that's my example of being honest and open at all times. If we know the truth, we can operate from the truth. It's hard to operate from a lie.
That's right. When you write, you can fight. And the thing is, just like prime example, we had a situation yesterday. Speaking of brother to brother, and we're in the store. I'm not going to say which store we were in. And Amon goes out and to get his ID.
Yeah, run outside to get my ID.
He runs outside to get his ID because
people in line.
Counter.
Yeah.
And so I'm standing in the store, and the next thing I know, the clerk, his attention is directed toward outside, and I look outside and I see I see law enforcement officials, and I'm thinking, I'm observing my environment. Now I'm surveying my environment, and I say, well, I have to go out here because this is my brother, so I don't know what's going on. But I went outside and I approached the scene, and and Amon can attest to this, as I was approaching the scene, there was no fear anywhere in me. I'm walking right up to the officers. I'm about to see what's going on. Now, because I know that this is a brother with integrity, this is a brother with high character, then whatever was getting ready to go down, it was about to go down. I was not getting ready to allow them to abuse my brother. If my brother throw a punch, then guess what? I'm jumping in there and I'm swinging with him. So we both.
That didn't happen.
Fortunately, we are here today. We're free with no bumps, no bruises.
But let's break that down. You just at a regular store, you all, and in a regular store, while at the counter, I have to run out to get my ID, and I rushed because there were other people in line. And while rushing there, I noticed a police officer had kind of crossed the back of my truck. I thought maybe something was hanging out the truck and he was identifying something. So, I'm steady kind of running toward my truck. He said, "Whoa, stop." And he put his hand, on his gun. Now, two officers putting their hand on the gun is cause for alarm. Every 28 hours, an unarmed black man is shot by a police officer. Do you think that's cause for alarm, brothers? Yes. So automatically, I broke my run. I said, whoa, what's going on? We got a call that there's a robbery going on in that store. I said, sir, I just came out here to get my ID. There is no robbery. Put that down. What is that you have here? It's a phone. It is a phone, and my phone is down. Who are you? And I stated my name. How do I know you're not robbing the store? I said, because I'm telling you I'm not robbing the store. I don't have anything on me. He still has his hand on his gun, and so does his partner. And he said, there's an officer standing over here, so don't make no sudden moves. And I looked to my left, and there was an officer standing beside another store with his hand on the gun, walking toward the store that PG and I were in. And as we began to talk, I see PG running toward. PG said, "What's going on, man? Why y'all detaining my brother?" He got a little loud. Dude, like, "Well, wait a minute. We don't know who you are. Somebody's robbing." He said, "Well, it's obvious." He said, "Well, ain't nothing obvious to me." And I said something to PG because I want this to stay calm. I said, "Well, PG, hold on. Let the officer explain what's going on." He seems to be upset. So we keeping it tone. You see what I'm saying? Because after you tell me all, what happened in the store, what I realized after I leave and he and I started to think about this, well, hold on. If you thought that was a robbery in the store, then you said, well, we got two suspects out here. And he said, well, we just get a call up saying, all right, everything's clear. He didn't go in the store to make sure that there really wasn't a robbery, that somebody had falsely pushed the button. They just got in their cars and left. Now, for most people, they say, well, that wasn't no big deal. But how many of you all are used to somebody thinking that you are a possible threat and putting their hand on a weapon, considering every 28 hours someone who looks like me is killed who's unarmed? Now, who has to walk around with those levels of concern? And the question you have to ask yourself, do those levels of stress affect your everyday life? You're darn right they do. We are not supermen. That's one of the reasons why we have some of the highest blood pressure. Not just how we eat, it's the stress many times that we encounter. And one thing I have to say to our brothers, we can't take that out, not only on our brothers, but we can't take that out on the sisters. But here's something I want to say to you sisters. Brothers ain't going to never stop beating you, those who do it, until we first stop killing each other.
Definitely. Hey, I want to jump in right now and let the callers know that if you choose to make a comment or have a question, then dial *6 and that will put you into the caller queue. Wait to be recognized. We'll call upon you and you can come on the air and you can make your question or ask your question or make your statement.
Well, anyone want to say anything? I'll make sure I got everything. I want to add a little something else while y'all, until someone makes a decision to get online, is this. Number 2 is learn to stand alone. We're going to go through some of the codes. Code number 1 is be honest and open at all times. Let your words be your bond. Back in the day, we just said word is my bond. Because many times in our community, I used to hear my grandfather say, many times, son, the only thing you got is your word. You know, he would say, the only thing I got is my word. I don't have a lot of money. Whatever I spend, I got to put back on the family out here in this garden. But for the most part, word being his bond was because we didn't have anything else but our integrity. If I said I needed something from you, normally I needed it for my family. And if I need to borrow money from you, I couldn't tell you anything else but brother, give me 2 weeks and I'll give you your money back. So that's when we meant word was my bond. And if I didn't have it all, I brought you what I did have. And many times if your brother didn't need it, he would give you a little pass for a moment or two. We got to get back to that kind of living. Let's go to the next one. Learn to stand alone. Many times, young brothers, you join these cliques and get involved in something else because no one has taught you how to be strong on your own. Just because everybody go to the left don't mean you got to go to the left too. Sometimes you will be left standing alone. That's leadership. You all follow what I'm saying? That's why when you see somebody in these high leadership roles, it's not a lot of them. Because that means they choose to take a stand. And many times when you take a stand, you will stand alone. Now, once people see you've gotten through the fear and you come out victorious, now they come running to you. But can you be man enough to stand strong when you are on your own?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Indeed.
Now, the other thing, if we're going until somebody else comes in, the next one I was saying, rest with our code of conduct. We got to resist this notion, no culturally derogatory terminology. We got to resist this idea to call each other niggas. Even though it sounds all cool and it's all fly, even though you can say it's naturally gifted, God's achieving against da-da-da-da-da. Look, brothers, at the end of the day, when can I just be a man? Now, I'm not going to not love you because you do that, but I'm saying it's something that we should begin to change. Now, I know Inga is another word from the origin of the word nigga that means God, it means king, and we can go back all we want to. But based off what has happened in this country, when they see a nigga, they don't see a God. Y'all follow what I'm saying? All right. The next one. All I'm asking is that we do our best at all times. Let me tell you something. Whether I'm lecturing at a Harvard Graduate School or lecturing at Howard or Xavier, I'm going to be the same in my lecture, or whether I'm out cleaning machines or whether I'm out waiting tables. We work hard no matter what we do. Let me tell you something. I can be eating some wings in a trap. I'll be sitting somewhere and with some diplomats, sipping on some type of whatever. You see what I'm saying? We got to be able to ship, what they call it? Shape shift. Shape shift is the word I'm looking for.
Right.
And we got to be excellent at it. You know what I'm saying? That means when you out here working, you got to get, you got to go from one style to the next one. We have to do that, brother.
Versatility. Yes, indeed.
So these are things that I'm just saying. Think of the consequences too, brothers, before you take your action. You know how many times I sat in a cell talking to brothers and we said, man, Mr. Rashidi, if I had to do that over again, brother, I wouldn't do it. You know what? You got to think about what you do before you do it. And by doing so, think of the consequences. Look, homeboy, tell me, I only did a 2-year bid. I don't want to be in jail 2 minutes.
Right.
You're talking about on 2 years, let alone 20.
Indeed. I got a couple questions. Can you break down some of the dynamics of, and these are cliches,
okay,
the crabs in the barrel mentality?
Oh, let me get that one first.
Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about this. All right, for those who don't know who I am, you can tell by my dictions. I dangle some participles and split verbs from time to time, and I do it non-apologetically. That has nothing to do with my intellect, but it has to do with how I was culturally, raised, and I don't apologize for that. And for those who listen to my family, I love you for how you raised me. But let me tell you something about crabs in a barrel. If you put a bunch of crabs in a barrel, guess what? They're all going to try to crawl out. And guess what? When that other crab is pulling on the other crab, he ain't pulling him to pulling him down. He holding on to him so he can get out too. So if you put them all in a barrel, one thing that you'll find out, if you put a bunch of crabs in a barrel, come 2 hours later, every crab in the barrel normally is out. Because when they first get started, they start to pull on each other. But after a while, they start to cling on to each other, and they use a line, and they generally pull each one of them out of that barrel. That's a jump, your cliche, or you jump to a notion. We are not crabs in a barrel. We've gone through a whole lot of things. How many people can you see could still be standing as strong as we are, considering what has happened to us over the years? I admire us as black men, but what I want to say to us is we can be better men. And a lot of the things that happened to us, I'm going to say this again, and you'll continue to hear me reiterate this during March, which is International Women's Month. Keep your hands off the women, brother. Every time that we can't verbalize, we get verbally discomfort, uncomfortable, we get closer to you. I mean, let me show you how it looks, sister. How we go from reason to rage. When we verbally uncomfortable, we tend to continue to go for it. We begin to speak a little bit louder. And then we get a little bit closer to you as we speak louder. Then we start to breathe a little faster. And then our hands start to move. But before we get to the breathing faster, either we need to remove ourselves, sisters, or you need to remove yourself. Because that suggests that brother may not have enough self-control to keep from putting his hands on you. So we got to work on that as brothers. That's not every brother. I want everybody to understand that. But for those of you who do, that's super important. Because you're not raising a child, and you shouldn't be beating on no child. To discipline a child is one thing, but to beat a child is something that's totally different. But I still say we have the right to discipline our children in the manner that we choose, because we are their parents. But that doesn't mean that we can't be better parents. We can't be better husbands. Look, I talk to brothers all the time. You know what they tell me all the time, man? You know, they be good dads. I mean, end up being good fathers. And they'll say, you know what, though, Mr. Rashidi, while we're in the conversation, I always wanted to be a good dad, but I never put being a good dad along with being a good husband. I know I'm a good dad, man, but I'm a jacked up husband. We got to work on that too. Or you need to stop being a husband, stop pretending to be one, and go ahead and separate or divorce. Now, that may be harsh, but there are certain things that we got to deal with as black men in this country right now. We got to get our own house together while we're trying to get everybody else's house together.
Well, you know, the reality of it is when you say separate or divorce, a lot of people say they stay in it for the children. Mm-hmm. However, what impact is the environment that you are creating having on the children if you are not your best you? You know, if your children always see you in a rage, if your children see That's you true. And your spouse always at odds, taking shots at each other, and basically just disharmonious and unhappy, you know, is that the environment that is proper for the child?
It's not, but we have been taught when we were really young, you know, to try to stick it out. You know, I always try to stick it out, but when you stick it out at the expense of the future of the children, you gotta move on. You know, children come from broken homes. You know, generally broken people raise broken children. Unless you get away from the fracture and then you separate, you can still harmoniously get along with the father. The father and the mother can do that, and the child don't have to be broken. I would rather see a child have two parents who are divorced and separated and be happy and healthy, or to be in a broken home and she grows to be a broken woman and then follow the same cliche. 1 and 2 marriages in our community, you all end up in divorce, which suggests many times that, you know, maybe we rush to judgment. And I'll say this to sisters. You don't always have to have a man, just like a man don't have to have a woman in their life to be married. But it's good to have someone, a companion. You know, sometimes, you know, it might not be a wife, but it might just be a companion. Sometimes you just may want to be solo and you just want to date. A lot of times our marriage didn't work because of infidelity, because we couldn't be honest about the fact that we wanted to be able to engage other women sexually. If that's the case, that's a hard thing to tell when now that you married. But it's hard if you're going to go out and cheat on your woman and she find out. So, and I know it goes both ways, but we have to mend our families, and how we mend our families is we help mend ourselves as men, starting to give good advice to brothers. I mean, why would you give brother bad advice? Man, that bitch is tripping, man, go get you another woman. Is that good advice, brother? And then you got to check your brother when your brother giving you bad advice.
Yes, sir. Hey, on the advice, hey, we're going to take a real quick break, but we'll be back with Brother to Brother with Amon Rashidi.
Okay, yeah.
It's your man Khalil Rashidi.
Right.
Yeah. We're asking you to tune in and tune up.
And then talk about how brothers receive it. We go for it.
Brother to Brother with Amon Rashidi. It comes together as men and discuss issues that need to be addressed within our community. Please, on our body as well. You already know. No nation violence behind us. Down to Amon Rashidi at 605-562-3140. Access code 389-254#. Once again, that's 605-562-3140. Access code 389-254#. Every Wednesday at 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern on Brother to Brother with Amon Rashidi. All right, you're listening to Brother with Amon Rashidi. microphone. Please go ahead with your questions, comments. Peace and blessings, King. How y'all feeling? It's the God Hopkins.
Peace. Say it, Uncle. What's happening, brother?
Maintaining, sustaining, and not complaining. You heard?
I like that. I like that. What you?
Hey, man. All I gotta say is, I'm here for two reasons. One, because I want to be, and number two, because I need to be. You know, in the history of humanity, you can't find written in any code or in any historic annals of any ethnicity and people on the planet of any war or any enemy that was being sent to defeat a people. You've never seen an enemy run because they were just afraid of the mass amounts of women and children. It is the men that they are afraid of. And until our men make a decision, whether it's all of us or a remnant of us, to come together and have a true spot assessment of ourselves, our condition won't change. You mentioned the N-word. The N-word, I don't like it, but I don't mind it being around because it keeps me reminded of the reality of ignorance trumping wisdom and righteousness in our community at this time. I don't like racism, but like I heard Morgan Freeman say in the interview. Morgan Freeman said, look, I live in Virginia and not in New York City or Hollywood. Why? Because in Virginia, I'm always reminded of the clear boundaries between me and those who hate me. But in New York and in Hollywood, the racism is undercover and the people who act like your friends really want to stab you in the back. So I'm going to live somewhere where the lines are drawn clearly so I'm not fooled for 1 minute. So the N-word won't lead until wisdom and righteousness among our people and superior morality is the bigger influence. So let it always be a reminder to us that there's a job to do and never let us have a false sense of security. You talked about the situation with relationships and marriages. As bad as broken marriages are, there is even a greater evil. So I always promote the people to choose the lesser of two evils. The idea of dating and courting without abstinence or celibacy between the male and the female is even more dangerous than a marriage gone bad. Because more children are being produced in relationships that are fly-by-night, sometimes one-night stands, sometimes 6 months, 1 year, wrestling in the sheets between male and females, and then children are left behind and they go on their way and women left holding the bag. And sometimes in a minority sense it happens with women as well. So I believe that there are a few things that we have to assess, and I'm going to end it with this. As a people, we have to admit what our true strengths are and our weaknesses are. I believe our true strengths are our ability to be tapped into the spirit of the universe, being the original people, and also our ability to choose unity and superior morality that the nations would have to accept as being better than theirs. But unity right now is not our strength. And economics right now isn't our strength. We want the dollar to be our strength. But in a capitalist country where we have no true capital, it will never be our strength unless we truly come together in unity. Because capital is the ability to have resources that if you invest them and you lose them, it in no way affects your current living situation. Most African Americans are not true capitalists. We are being sold a capitalist dream, and we're forced to believe that we are capitalists when we are not, because we simply have no capital. Fiat currency is not capital. And last but not least, my brothers and I in here in Buffalo, New York, will be doing a historical economic series called The Economic Plan of W.E.B. Du Bois and Paul Robeson. And I believe that many blacks are now up to the challenge of two of the greatest minds of the late 19th and early 20th century who had economic plans for the black masses if we would only pay attention. So all I'm saying is I continue to in the system we created. And you know that's true. So I'm
Yes, sir.
Now I'm going to continue to listen. And I'm just going to say, man, let us keep going, man. But let us be honest about what's going on so that we fight the fight with the weapons we have and not with imaginary weapons of good or shit of good. Thanks, elders.
Thank you, brother.
Peace, brother. Thank you.
Well, that was on point, man. That's the whole goal of us to doing, for doing the things that we do is to give you an opportunity to voice our opinion as brothers. Many times we don't have a format. Whether you like it or you dislike it, you still have the right, brothers, to voice that opinion. And as far as us, talking, we have to communicate with each other as much as we can to become better men. If a lot of times we've gotten to the point a lot of times where we don't know each other, we just think we know each other. We'll make comments like, "Yeah, I know that nigga." No, really, you don't. You got a perception of who he is, and sometimes until you sit down and talk to a man, you don't really learn who that man really is. And I just think that we should give each other a chance. And believe me, there's a lot of negativity surrounding who we are as brothers, but we can't allow that to get in the way. What is at stake is our very existence. So when you see a young brother with his pants sagging, just know that in the future, one day, he's going to be a grown man. And he can't be judged on his manhood just because his pants is sagging. That's only one aspect of it.
That's right.
So I just bear those things in mind so we don't be so judgmental of each other. Yes. And see one thing that we detest so much till we like, man, forget that so-and-so.
That's right, and write each other off.
Right.
We have another caller on the line, and I'm after he speaks, I'm going to come back and ask some questions about some of those challenges that we face in not being able to get along and that lack of acceptance sometimes that we might have for another brother. Caller from the 469-222. Come on with it, sir. Peace, brother. Hey, what's going on, bro?
That's a lot to go.
You guys are just hitting on all cylinders. It's almost, I know it's an interactive conversation, but it's almost so informative that you kind of just want to listen. So I want you guys to know that.
Thank you.
However, just to listen to the subject matter, that my brother's keeper. And you said that I am my brother. More than just a keeper, because everything that one black man experiences, we all experience just by default. Levels of perception, understanding what's going on around us. Also, we understand that we live in a system that is predetermined our destruction first, and parable goes to come from the men and rain will be back from women.
If you, right.
It says, the Bible says that if you find a home, what's first you must find the strong man.
KB, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
No, brother. Speak up a little bit, cause you're dropping some jewels, man. I know you. I don't know if you're able to. I don't know if you're able to project a little bit more, but I know that I just heard you say if we come for your what'd you say? If we come from your men at night, we'll be back for your women in the morning.
Yes, sir. Something to that nature. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but I know that that's a part of it. Come for your men at night, we'll be back for your women in the day. In other words, it's not. It won't end when they're done with us.
Right.
But as I was saying, you must first find what the strong is. If you're going to come into a home and take over, you must first deal with the head of the home, the stronger person in the home. Whoever that's been.
The protector, yes, sir.
One thing we have to do, man, is we have to. I look at my daughter, okay, who takes stands and things of that nature. In summer camps, I observed this last year when she went to summer camp. This particular dance facility where they have nothing but girls. So I said to myself, man, this is how sisterhood begins. Okay?
Hmm.
So this is all girls. Communing with one another, training with one another, socializing with one another, learning how to deal with one another in terms of in confrontations and whatever the case may be, just disagreement. So, with that being said, I had to consider, what do we have for young boys besides the football field? Well, it's really not a time to sit down and teach. You know, we had coming up in April, I believe it's April, you have Black Girls Rock is going to air again. Where are the Black Boys Rock? You know, it doesn't exist because they don't want black boys to rock. All right? They don't want black boys to be significant. But we have to decide that not only am I my brother's keeper, but I am my brother. You see? Which you got the code of conduct that you were dishing out, brother. They're on point. They should be posted as well, so we can print these things out and refer to them from time to time. We have to become our brother.
I like that.
Because it's getting harder to just keep them. You know what I'm saying? Because keeping means I'm there when you need me, for the most part. Or I see you in a distressful situation. But we have to get to the point where I become my brother. And again, keep in mind that we're in a system that is destined to see us, destroyed. We're certainly divided at this point, but the foundations are there. I think we all want the same things, but having that code of conduct definitely makes that more of a reality. And then we have to come together, man. We all know each other, and we have to find a way to start having something in the summertime. Rashidi, I know you've done it before as well, and participating with the youth. But we need to rebirth that and have something that takes place in the summertime that's specific for boys.
That's right.
And we can't be ashamed of that. And we can't let nobody come in and tell us, oh, we're being prejudiced or we're discriminating against females. Go ahead, brother. I'm sorry.
No, you are right, brother. I want to speak to what he just said, because what KB is talking about is us really taking that level of responsibility. What I say sometimes, with being a griot, you choose to become the 13th disciple who chooses to take upon himself the responsibilities. Somebody just asked the question, what is the crap is he talking about, man? How can I be my brother? You and your brother are one by example, by exemplifying the things, by having one common code of conduct. And somebody else saying, well, what is he talking about? We already got a black president. That's one man with a job. A guy becoming the president don't have a damn thing to do with black people as a whole. That's a job. White people have had 43 presidents, and it's a whole bunch of poor white people out there too who are still upset with what's going on in America. So we have to realize a job does not define. See, you can either look at us as individuals or you look at us as a community. You look at us as a community. Don't look at us as individual. Bill Cosby is real rich right now too, isn't he? It's a lot of individual rich black people, but as a whole, you got to look at how we are perceived. You got to look, as Jesus says, how you treat the least of us. And someone has to look at the ordinary people who make this country function every day. That's all I'm saying.
Well, the least of us.
Let me say this very quickly, if I can.
Go ahead.
From my phone down.
Okay.
See, the brother, whoever asked that question, don't understand systems.
Thank you, brother.
Okay? Don't understand what an institution is. You see, I served 10 years in the Marine Corps. All right?
Yes, sir.
Now, it's a recognized institution. So if I say I'm a Marine, there's no question what that means. Because people recognize that institution as something.
Right.
Something that has a reputation. You follow what I'm saying? I'm just using that as an example.
Yes, sir.
If I say I'm a Marine, there's no, what is that? So if I say I am my brother, the problem is there is the question of what does that mean? What does that look like? Because we don't have a system in place that we recognize and we adhere to that says I am my brother. So therefore, if I had a system, we had a system, there would be no need for the question. The question would not be valid or relevant. Right. Because it will be understood what it means to say I'm my brother, because we have an institution of brothers that have made it pretty clear what that means. And that's what I'm saying when I say the institution of the military. Or if you go to Harvard Law, You say I'm a Harvard Law graduate.
Yeah.
You know, some people may say, what does that mean? Well, most people say, well, this nigga, what do you, excuse me, but what do you mean what that means? If you don't know what that means, then you got the problem, not me.
I feel you.
So I reverse that question in terms of what does that mean? Because the problem is, you actually don't know what that means.
Well, you know,
we don't know what that means.
I would like to speak to the person who says, what are you talking about? Yes, sir. Thank you for your call, brother. Thank you for your call and your insightful words. The person, you know, and this person is not being singled out, because there are a lot of people who are saying, you know, well, you got a black president. I mean, and then the question was saying, you know, when he said president is a job. Let me explain something to you, people who don't understand. And I'm going to even, I will connect Zadok, the God Hop MC's point, with KB's point. At the end of the day, you know, we're talking about black men being that endangered species. We're talking about, if we are ever to get out of this condition that we are in, it is incumbent upon black men to come together, to be able to commune. Because, as the brother said, when they come to attack, the first thing that they're going to do in the art of war, you're going to take out the protector. And if you take out the protector, then everyone else is everyone else is fair game. Everyone else is easy access. So this is why. And when the brother says that I am an extension of my brother, see, the person who asked a question, listen, if I am an extension of my brother, that means that me and my brother are one. That means that there is a commonality between me and my brother, mind, body, and spirit. That is what we should strive to be, and on the basis of righteousness. So, also, when we talk about the art of war, you divide and you conquer. So I can understand why you don't want me to be an extension of my brother, and you want us to be fragmented, because united we stand, divided we fall. So we're going to speak to that. So, you know, keep on coming. And to the person who came in from Russia, Privet, that means hi. Privet, thank you for joining us from the Soviet Union or wherever you're coming from.
Well, hey, that speaks to one other thing that we have to have. We have to be what I call OWF, or One World Family. And what I mean by One World Family is, if you come to America and you're just talking about just black people in America, but you come to America and you literally start to identify with people all over the world who not only look like you, but also respect you and are willing to work with you, now you got some foundation to move forward. We can't sit around and worry about what people think. We need to be telling people what we want them to think and do our damnedest to make them think it. You know, I'm not a backseat driver. I drive in the front seat. And then sometimes you got to not worry about, you know, all the other things that people are driving. One of the solutions that we're dealing with is today, being able to have a forum like we have now, with access over to with well over 1 million people to be able to engage, being able to have an opportunity to be able to go to a Bermuda, to go to the UK, or go to an Africa, to be able to sit down with diplomats and come up with concepts and ideas. Even our Saturday schools for boys, and what KB is talking about, developing that. So these are beautiful things, you know. So I think we should bear that in mind. And another thing that's happening also, I want to say a big shout out to Sankofa Global for what Amon is about to do with the Sankofa Talks, which we have, I think Dr. Barudi is coming down. Let's get them all together.
We got Dr. Barudi. We got
David Banner.
Brother Smalls. We got David Banner. I believe.
And Professor Grip. And Shucky Ducky is going to be hosting. It's going to be at the Frederick Douglass Center on Keys. And if you have not got a chance, go to sankofaglobal.com. That's my brother, and he's been doing that for a long time, and that's an example of our brotherhood, because they'll be bringing knowledge for other strong brothers who have a history of activities, and we need that, you all. So when you get a chance, go to sankofaglobal.com and check that out, and let's support that event. We'll be there too, broadcasting it not only here, but hopefully broadcasting that abroad. The more you can learn about us and the more people can hear about our greatness, the more we can get more things done.
You know what? I want to address the person who said, "What is the solution?" Bottom line, the solution. Then they came back. What's the solution? Bottom line.
That's a distraction.
What is the solution?
Promise.
Listen. Number one. Bottom line, the solution: unity. Unity, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches, unity is the key to our rise. Okay. Along with that unity, we need education. Okay, because if we are educating, that the more you become educated, then the less ignorant you are. Ignorant means not knowing. Okay, so if you are educated, then you understand this institution of white supremacy. You can dissect that, you can understand that, and then you can fight against that system, which is preventing the key from your rise by using certain tactics which involve dividing in conquering, which is part of the art of war. So what is the solution? Again, unity. Unity is the key to our rise. Okay, education is the key to our rise. Let's keep these things on the front burner. Everything else after that will fall in place. In other words, we are not a violent and aggressive people toward each other. We are a loving and peaceful people. So if we could just bring black people together, if we could just bring us together, then all of our problems, we'll be able to solve those and figure those out. Because as the minister says, reasoning is the highest form of mental mathematics. So if you bring us and you put us in an environment, then we can sit down and we can reason and we can figure out the next steps to take ourselves to greater heights.
Well, there it is, you all. The clock on the wall saying it's really just about all. And I know we got some other people, and I know some people called and just said, listen, man, hey, y'all teaching, I'm learning, and we need to continue. This won't be the last time. We'll continue to do it. Sometimes I'll bring the easel in. We might even have a couple of guests every now and again. The goal is to keep the dialogue going. Just like a church is there every Sunday, you want to make sure we're there on a consistent basis so you can be there for your people. It's going to be people who love you. There are going to be people who hate you. There are going to be distractors. Just get prepared for it. Hey, it is what it is, you all. And sometimes your greatest enemy sit right beside you. You know what I'm saying? When I say sit right beside you, I'm talking about the people who are right in the door with you and you don't recognize it. Those very people that you see that's sitting in your jobs right now. And I get this all the time from people who are dealing with racism on jobs. And I'm getting more than I ever gotten before. Because, people feel like once I've worked, I've got my degree, I'm on a job, it's really going to work. And you realize, hey, it is everywhere. So you just got to prepare yourselves. And with that being the case, I would love for those of you all to go out and check out Sankofa Global, because there's an event coming up on April the 23rd. I think it's going to be monumental for our community. It gives an opportunity for us to come together, give us an opportunity also to come together as a marketplace if we got product to sell. So anytime we're doing something like that, hey, y'all, make sure you tell everybody that you can. And I want to thank all of you all who tuned in, who was checking us out. We'll get better as we go forward. But with anything else, without any further ado, I remember a lady by the name of Josie Myrie. And Josie was a sister that worked with me a long time ago. And Josie is a beautiful sister. And I was about to get into a conflict with one of my co-workers. Well, I'm about 22 at the time. Really pretty hot-headed. I had a little knowledge. I was in that stage 3. Black hat, black rug, black everything, brother. I was ready to tear down the system at the time, but I wasn't using reasoning. I was just really angry at the time. And I was really about to go in on this dude named Eric that was on the job with me. And she just walked up and she whispered a poem to me. And I use it all the time. And as God is my witness, I may have heard it twice and I memorized it from the first time she said it. In our closing remarks, there have been many a fool who turn it to when he thinks the job is too tough. But the man with the plan is the man who can stand whenever the going gets rough. She said, now life is a job and its troubles may rob you of your reasons for wanting to try. But the door that we dread is the one just ahead. Pass it and all obstacles will fly. Now life is a cinch bought by the inch, but by the square yard is a chore. But the man who begins and fights till he wins, simple enough, is the man that the whole world is waiting for. Holla Black at us at a Great Minute. Thank you for joining us from brother to brother. We hope to see y'all again next week. Holla Black.
Peace, family.
It's your man, Rashidi of the Great Nation, asking everyone to connect with us on social media. Like, follow, and subscribe at Griot Nation Radio on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Follow us on Twitter at Griot Radio. And find us on the web at www.griotnationradio.com.
Well, there it is.